Denari provides you with 3 pledge donor statement formats that can be used to keep your donors up to date on the status of their pledge. They are the Pledge Acknowledgement, the Pledge Statement, and the Pledge Combo. Standard Denari gives you the printed version of all 3 of these. If you have purchased e-correspondence, you can also send the Pledge Acknowledgement and Pledge Statement by email. In most cases, we are able to modify or customize the layout of these statements within some limits. You can contact tech support to discuss the changes you'd like to make to the standard layout for each of these. Denari also provides 3 standard reports to let you track your pledge activity. In addition, you have Pledge Segmenter available that allows you to filter on almost all pledge characteristics to get the pledge information you need. Let's begin by discussing these 3 statement formats. A statement is a document that is intended for your donors, and you can pick and choose which, if any, you want to send. The first statement we'll look at is the Pledge Acknowledgement. The acknowledgement, by Denari's definition, is a one-time statement that would normally go out following the initial setup of a pledge. It is a kind of shaking hands with the donor. It lets them know that you have their pledge recorded and are confirming their commitment with them. If you decide to use acknowledgements, you begin by going to the Gifts tab and then Letters to create the letter body for your acknowledgements. We'll click Add New to create a new letter. The default template has the pledge information, the start date, pledge amount, frequency, etc. at the bottom of the page. The top of that page has the date, the salutation, and the letter body. It is this letter body that you will create here. This gives you the opportunity to thank the donor and talk about the importance of their commitment. Later, when you run the acknowledgements, Denari will merge this letter body into the statement template. The next step is to go to the pledge record. You will typically do this while setting up the pledge. You'll find an acknowledgement checkbox and the letter field here. Check the box and select the letter. Now you can run them. If you've set up 10 pledges today, for example, you will run them usually as a group. Now to run them, let's go to the Pledges tab and then Pledge Acknowledgements. You can filter the statements by using a pledge segment or by start and end date as you see here. However, for the time being, let's assume that we want to send the statements to those 10 donors that we set up today. All we need to do is click the Submit Request button at the top of the page. Denari will find those 10 pledges with the boxes checked and create an acknowledgement for each one. At the same time, Denari will uncheck the boxes. As we said earlier, this is intended to be a one-time statement, so now you can set up more pledges tomorrow and run those at the end of the day as well. Now, back to the filters. There are times that you may want to send the acknowledgements but only to selected people and you don't want to uncheck that box. You can use the pledge segment or the start and end date filters. When you use a filter, Denari will not uncheck the Queue for Acknowledgement checkbox in the pledge. You can get more information about Pledge Segmenter from the videos on that topic. The next statement format we'll look at is called the Pledge Statement. It is a format that can be used to update donors on the status of their pledge. It can be sent to everyone periodically or by using a pledge segment. It can be filtered so that it can be sent to just people who are behind or people who are more than a number of days behind, etc. The pledge segment can also filter out those paying by credit card or EFT. Some Denari users feel that it's important to update donors on a regular basis, whether they are behind or not. Some only want to send statements to those who are behind and not paying by credit card or EFT. You can choose if and to whom you want to send statements. Just like pledge acknowledgements, you will begin by creating a letter body. The top 2/3 of the default statement format is the letter, and the bottom 1/3 is the pledge information supplied by Denari. The second step is to create a pledge segment if you need those filters. Again, if you need more information about how to create a pledge segment, take a few minutes to review the video on that topic. To run the pledge statements, you'll go to the Pledges tab and then Pledge Statements. First, we'll select the letter that you created earlier. Again, this is just the letter body portion. Denari will fill in the date and salutation at the top. Now enter a calculation date. Most of the time, this is just the date that you are running the statement, so you can enter today's date. The account number field can be used to print just one statement for one donor. You can skip this field if you're printing for a group of people. The pledge segment field, as mentioned earlier, can be used to filter the statements if needed. Again, you might want to only send them to those who are behind. This field is optional, however. If you don't select a segment here, Denari will produce a statement for all open pledges. The order field can be used to output the statements in one of these three options: zip code, donor name, or account number. You can also choose to print labels or envelopes at the same time that the statements are being created if you choose something in this field. If you leave it blank, Denari will only print the statements. There are three statement formats to choose from. One pledge per page. If a donor has more than one pledge, Denari will produce more than one page for each pledge on its own page. The multi-pledge per page allows you to print all of the pledges on one page if that donor has more than one pledge. And then finally, the one donor per page sponsorship. This is just like multi per page, but it adds some sponsorship fields. As mentioned earlier, we're able to modify the statement formats with some limitations. It works best if you print out a default and then contact tech support to discuss the changes you would like. We can use the default as a starting point. Each of the three options you see here uses a different template, so you'll need to let us know which one you'll be using. The name segment to exclude field allows you to create a name segment that identifies a group of people that you want to remove from the statement process. For example, you may not want to send statements to your staff or board members. You can create a classification to identify those name records and use that to create your name segment. Select that here, and Denari will not print statements for them. Now, just click the Make Pledge Statements button at the top of the page, and Denari will begin to run those statements. If you have a large number of statements, this could take a few minutes. The last statement that we'll cover here is called the Pledge Combo. It is intended to replace the thank you receipt. In fact, the donor's name record must have the Suppress Receipts checkbox checked for Denari to produce a pledge combo. So instead of sending a thank you receipt following each donation, you would send a pledge combo at the end of each month. The combo contains both pledge information and donation information by month. It shows what has been donated in January, March, April, etc. It also contains a summary of the donor's pledges. Some Denari users send pledge combos to those donors who donate by credit card or EFT, and they may only send them once a quarter. Some send them every month. Many Denari users think that it is important to send a thank you receipt following each gift, and for that reason don't want to use pledge combos. You can decide what works best for you. Just like the other statements, the top of the pledge combo contains the letter body, so you'll need to create that first. You will also need to check the Suppress Receipts checkbox in each donor's name record that will be receiving a combo instead of a receipt, and you will need to assign a classification to each donor if you plan to send combos to only some of your donors. You will then need to create a name segment that uses that classification to identify those donors. Now you're ready to run the combos. Again, we'll go to the Pledges tab and then Pledge Combos. And first we'll select the name segment. These will be the people that we've already identified as having received or will receive the combos. If you plan to send a combo to all of your donors with pledges, you can skip this field. Again, whoever's going to receive a combo must have that Suppress Receipts checkbox checked in their name record. Enter the as of date. This will usually be today's date, and then select the letter that will appear at the top of the statement. Select an output type. Usually that will be the printed combos option, but you can output the data to Excel or one of the other options when needed. Select an output order, and now you can run the combos by clicking on Run Combos at the top of the page. As with the other statement formats, we can modify the layout to some degree, and you can contact tech support to discuss the options for that also. Pledge Segmenter is the primary tool that you can use to report on your pledge activity. It provides a great deal of flexibility. As mentioned earlier, you can use it to find pledges that are behind, pledges to a specific fund or appeal, credit card and EFT pledges, and much more. Again, review the videos on Pledge Segmenter for your specific details. Denari does offer 3 standard pledge reports, and they are all found on the Pledges tab. They are Pledge Detail Short, Pledge Detail Long, and then Pledge Summary. All 3 work in much the same way in that they require a pledge segment as a filter, so you'll need to create that first. But the outputs are different. Anytime you see the word detail in Denari, it means all records. In this case, it means that the output will be a list of all pledges. If a donor has more than one pledge, for example, it will show each of those pledges. There's a long and short format, which simply means that the short offers less information for each pledge than the long version. The summary report is the opposite of detail. It groups or summarizes information. So instead of seeing every pledge for a set of pledges, you will see a summary of those pledges. Since all 3 work in the same way, let's look at the summary report. First, we'll choose a sort order or report order, either by donor name or by account. Then we'll select a pledge segment. Again, using that segment that you previously created will provide the filter for this report. You can look at it, for example, those pledges that are behind in the format of the pledge summary report. The name segment field can be used to further filter this report if needed. For example, if you want to look at the pledges from donors in a certain zip code, you could create that name segment that finds just those donors. Combined with the pledge segment that identifies those pledges that are behind, you will get a report in the summary format that shows pledges from donors in that zip code that are behind. And you can use the pledge start and stop dates if needed. Usually, if you're using a pledge segment as a filter, it is best to put the start and end dates in the segment along with what other filters you want to use. But if you're not using a pledge segment, you can filter on just the start and end dates here. To run the report, click the Submit Request button at the top of the page. This concludes this session on pledge statements and reports. If you have any questions, please contact tech support through the support button at the top of the Denari page.